Okay. All right, so I think I will get going because I know we have a full agenda and it's 6:30. So people can keep jumping on. It looks like we have about 24 people right now. So I am going to mute everyone first. And I should begin by telling you all that we are recording this session. That's the housekeeping stuff. We'll record it for people that may not have been able to be here. We have some folks that are in different time zones right now also that couldn't be here at this time but wanted to participate. So we'll be recording, so just keep that in mind. We have a chat on the right that is going to be monitored by Jessica Trumbull and Rachel Feldkamp. So you can, Rachel and Jessica, wave, say hi. They are here to monitor and help answer those questions. And I will begin with a little bit of an overview about what we're doing and sort of why we chose this topic. But I'm going to share my screen with you first so you can see the slides. And the slides are not coming up. Can you all see that? I'm not in presentation mode.
Yes, we can see your screen.
Thank you. Okay, and if I move this, I can make it in presentation mode, but everything's a little slow. Okay. So tonight's talk is really about managing stress and modeling resilience. And the reason we chose that topic is because many of you have indicated that this has been a very stressful time. And we know that this is a very stressful time. We also know that your kids are experiencing some stress and that these are completely unprecedented times. And we don't have answers for all of the things our kids are asking and all of the situations that they're encountering and all of the feelings they're feeling. So tonight, I think I wanted to begin by talking a little bit about uncertainty and the uncertainty that causes some fear and also some anxiety on all of our parts. And some of that uncertainty came in the form of questions that you submitted to me prior to this meeting, which is about next year. And the answer is that we don't have all the answers right now, obviously. We are waiting and following. I can tell you that Tom and Tracy and I and Adriana were all participating in webinars with people all over the world regularly that are doing this, that have been doing this longer, that are even beginning to consider reopening. And we are constantly monitoring what the best practices are. But we will first and foremost observe the health and safety recommendations for the state of Illinois, for the city of Chicago. So that is, of course, number one. But in the meantime, there are many contingency plans in place. And I wanted to begin with that because it came up on the questions frequently. So I want to make sure you know that these are things that we are already talking about and learning about, again, how other people are doing the reopenings or planning for the reopening. So I just wanted to put that out there. I think that some of the stress has come from that unknown, but some of the stress has come from just trying to manage time while you're working. Many of you working from home while now trying to school your children or facilitate learning at home. The resources are cumbersome and or sometimes overwhelming because your children are probably more adept at these platforms than we as adults are. I'll add myself to that because the kids are much more facile with that. They've been using these platforms. But you're also, managing this incredible sense of loss for your kids. Your kids have this sense of loss around their relationships with their teachers and their friends and change. And how often is it that kids ask us questions that we really just don't have answers for? And because there are so many unknowns, that your kids are aware of that. And they should be aware of that in the sense that we don't have all the answers, but there are many things that we can do to manage that level of stress and to manage all of the behaviors and feelings that go along with it. So tonight we're going to hear from Scott Pacheco, who's our school counselor. He's going to talk a little bit about building resilience in your children. Tennille Sanders, our PYP coordinator, is going to then talk a little bit about modeling that resilience. Peg Kiner, our director of technology and innovation, is going to talk about some tools for organization around building resilience. And then Meg Napick, who is our math specialist, is going to talk about, she's going to share some resources with you. And she's going to talk a little bit about self-care as parents, because that is very, very important and something that we tend to think last about when we're trying to meet our kids' needs. So we will, again, keep that chat line going. So if you have questions that come up, please put them in there. If we are not able to answer them tonight, we can send you an email. We will share the resources that are shared tonight out with you after this, so you don't have to worry about taking screenshots or anything like that if you see a slide that you like. And a second reminder, we are recording tonight. Okay, so I'm gonna, with that, pass over to Mr. Pacheco.
All right. Hello, everyone. Please tell, good to see you all. Please tell all your kids I miss them. I see a lot of them, but I wish I could see them in person. I'm going to start screen sharing here in 1 second. All right. And I'm going to hit my present button. Okay, so just I'm going to give a quick overview kind of how this is kind of going to work. I'm going to have a slide up there that might have a quote or something that I'm going to relate kind of what I'm talking to about, but you don't have to kind of read the quote over and over. More what I'm saying is more the meat of what we're presenting. So, you know, Cindy, if you want to go on mute too real quick, that might help that we don't hear your typing. Thank you. So the first slide is kind of like a accepted definition of what resilience is from a psychological perspective. And the reason I share this slide to start is because when it comes to resilience and coaching it in younger children, I want people to understand the gravity of what we're asking them to do. That being resilient and dealing with adversity and learning how to really battle some through difficulties and even some traumatic experiences, it takes time. It takes time, and most of us gain resilience with experience. So asking a 6-year-old, 7-year-old to be as resilient as I am as a 35-year-old, I always got to remind myself, I have a little more experience with failure, with struggle. And so I always keep in mind that when I work with kids and building resilience, I got to start really small. I want them to understand kind of what resilience is, understand the process of dealing with the adversity, of picking things up and keep trying it. And I got to be really, really patient with them, because it's okay that they quit a little bit. And that kind of leads me into my next slide. This is something I always remind myself of when I'm trying to coach resilience into young kids, is that I say I coach the reattempt and I don't criticize the quit. And what I am saying when I tell that to myself is that it's easy to get frustrated with a child or even myself when I'm attempting something difficult and I quit. And I see I want something to get done and it gets too hard and it quits. And it's easy to get really frustrated with. But quitting in a lot of ways is a completely healthy coping mechanism. We encourage kids and ourselves to take breaks if things are getting a little frustrating, walk away from something and come back to it when you're ready. And just because I stopped doing a math assignment tonight doesn't mean I quit on math, right? It doesn't mean I'm never going to try an assignment again. So really, when I'm talking about coaching resilience in the kids, I'm really talking about the ability to put a negative experience behind you and not be afraid to try that same exact task, no matter how hard it was. Because what resilience is, a lot of people, me myself included, was coached, don't quit, don't be a quitter, was kind of the terminologies that were used when I was growing up. But really, as I've gotten older, I realized that we all quit a little bit. We all hit a moment where it's just, I just can't. I can't right now, and I got to walk away. And really what resilience isn't not quitting, but it's kind of elongating the time from the start of something until the quit. So even if a kid quits, even if a kid, I'm trying to get him to do math for a week in a row, and yesterday he could only do 15 minutes before he closed the computer and said, I can't do it no more. And then today he quit again, he closed the computer, said, I can't do it tomorrow, but he did 17 minutes. I got to get that kid to understand that that's building resilience, that the quit wasn't the issue. That's okay, that you needed to walk away, that you got to a point that you just got too frustrated, and getting him to understand, or her to understand, that you did better. Here, you don't want to do your math homework tonight? Let's try it for 10 minutes and then we'll take a 5-minute break. And after that, let's see if we can go for 11 minutes and 12. So really, instead of encouraging them not to quit, I'm just trying to get them to kind of struggle with it for a little bit longer. And we'll get back to that idea of struggling with it for a little bit longer. And when it comes to being motivated, when it comes to resilience, it's a lot about motivation, right? Like I got to be motivated to get back up and try again. And a lot of people have asked me, parents, and I've asked myself a lot of times, is how do we motivate kids? How do we motivate someone, anyone, to do something that maybe they're not motivated to do? And I really believe that motivation with kids and people is a lot about incentive. It's about incentive, that kids want to know, what am I gaining from this? And when I talk about that, I'm not talking about a material thing, that if I do my homework, I get to play Fortnite for 15 more minutes. I try to get kids to understand that what they're gaining are skills that will help them achieve goals that they are interested in. So what I try to do is find something that a kid wants to be good at. Say my kid isn't motivated to do the writing tonight. He's not motivated to do it. But every day he wants to play basketball out back. He likes to shoot hoops, and one day he dreams to be a basketball player. Then I might make a little analogy for him to understand, hey, there's going to be a game that you're going to be missing all your shots, and you're going to have to keep shooting. You have to do your best. And you're going to not feel like that's right. You're going to feel like you're missing that shot, but you're going to have to keep shooting. And missing math problems and missing basketball problems, they're both building resilience if we keep trying with them. So what you're learning in this classroom will also help you on the court. Or if she wants to be a dancer, and one day you're going to be up on stage and you're going to be afraid and not want to try and take a shot at a new routine that you just tried. But what you're learning to try this new math problem or try this new writing assignment, you're learning resilience that will make you unafraid to take a risk in other situations that might be more goals that you're looking for. So when we're talking about motivation, we really want to try to get kids to understand how the skills that underlie all of this resilient skill applies to everything. And you might feel like I'm the enemy, or the math teacher's the enemy, and or even the assignment's the enemy. But really, it's the struggle that you're dealing with. And we're going to learn how to start to enjoy that struggle, how to start to realize that dealing with that struggle is part of my growth. I'm going to go on to the next slide here. When I talk about struggle is a big word that I use with kids. Kids will tell me all the time, this is boring, I don't like it, this is hard. I hear that a lot as a school counselor. And my task often is to get them to appreciate that struggle, get them to understand that this discomfort that you're experiencing, that's the growth. That's where it happens. That everything's hard at first, that you're not gonna, there's gonna be moments in everything that you don't enjoy, and it's gonna be uncomfortable, but that process of struggling is really what makes you great. And getting them to understand that dealing with struggle, I really believe the people who can deal with the struggle longest show the best results. The person who stands on the treadmill for the extra 20 minutes might get a little better running skills out of it. The person in the library for the extra hour after class ends might perform a little better on the test. So instead of getting them to focus on results, like understanding that I'm trying to get this assignment done, getting to understand the process, that I'm growing by struggling with this assignment, that my goal isn't to get done with the assignment because there's always going to be a next assignment. The goal is to get better at being me, get better at struggling with the assignment, being able to suffer through it a little bit longer as I get older, and becoming a better version of myself. So when we're talking resilience, we understand it's a lifelong process. I mean, I would think my resilience at 18 compared to 28 compared to 35, it continually has improved. And it's because I've taken this growth mindset, this lifelong journey to dealing with it. And I think it's a really important message for kids to hear is that, hey, you're not supposed to be good at this right now. That at 5 years old, that's okay if you feel like quitting and walk away, or at 10 years old. but this is something we're going to get better at as time goes on, because we're going to understand how this is helping us. And then the last slide I have here, this is a longer slide, and this is kind of 8 things that you can do. So I'll talk over it as maybe you read through it, and I'll leave it up there a little longer. But I think it's really important for kids to hear from adults how we are working on our resilience too. I think it's really important for them to understand, especially with everything that's happening right now. People feel vulnerable, people feel kind of out of their routine, and really have been asked to take on a lot of new challenges, teaching, working from home, working in a new way, working on a computer instead of in person. And I think it's important that they hear that we are struggling a little bit with that too. That, hey, you know, right now, bud, I'm feeling a little out of sorts too. I'm feeling a little frustrated. So here's what I'm doing. Here's what I'm doing. I'm making little lists here to hold me accountable, and I'm not getting it all done, but I'm trying my best. Do you want to make a list with me? And, you know, hey, I'll tell you what we're going to do. I'm feeling a little frustrated at the computer right now. Let's both try to work for 20 more minutes, and then we'll go for a motion break together. We'll take a little walk. So partnering with the kids in something that's kind of a lifelong journey opens the door for a lot of communication too. And I really think that being vulnerable to a kid, it kind of brings their guard down. I think kids want to make adults happy, especially adults they love and respect. And for them to hear kind of, I'm struggling with this too, it gives them permission to kind of struggle with it and to say, hey, you know what, it's okay that I'm struggling with it because mom and dad are too, and we're working on this together. So, and finally, that kind of communication, that permission to be vulnerable and not good enough right now, that's the foundation for more complex problems with your kid as they get older. That if right now I could tell you I messed up and, you know, didn't do my math homework because I wasn't feeling it, so I need some help with resilience, that later in life, if things come a little more complex of an issue they run into, they're going to know that mom and dad are someone I can come to when I'm not at my high, not only when I'm at my highest, when I'm feeling a little down, when I'm feeling a little scared, or I'm feeling a little like I need, you know, help, that there's someone I can come to in an honest way like that. So that's kind of what I wanted to say about kind of the messaging for resilience. I really think it's really important for us to remember how long of a journey it is, how it's a lifelong journey, how we're going to continually build on our resilience. And it's really important for them to show us that, for us to show them that, hey, we're still dealing with this too. So thank you for listening in. Like Ms. Rigling said, all this will be available. If you have anything specifically for me, please feel free to email me. I'd love to hear from you all. I'm going to stop my screen share now, and I am going to pass it on to Ms. Tennille Sanders.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight. I can see one person. It's labeled as M. Garcia. You have your medals from your races hanging on a thing. I have the same exact one in my office upstairs, so I just wanted you to know. Got it. So I'm going to go ahead and start screen sharing as well, so we can look at how to model more of it at home. Get into present mode. All right. So here we go. So growing up, we learned that the 3 R's were reading, writing, and arithmetic, right? Even though it's arithmetic. Reading, writing, arithmetic. Well, things are a little bit different now. Some of the 3 R's that we can think of these days, as we learn that these life skills, this character education, is a critical piece of education, we're looking more to relationships. Relationships are like the building block of an education, right? And I think that's the piece that a lot of us are really missing right now. So we as a team are constantly working on ways to try to make sure that that is still a big piece of what we do, even in our remote learning and our e-learning. Routines, obviously, kids need routines, consistency. We need routines and consistency. And right now, those things are also up in the air. So little things like making sure to eat meals together, making sure to take time to exercise, or to have family COVID meetings, sleeping a good amount of sleep every night, and then practicing the mindfulness. But tonight, like, we're really focusing on resilience. Okay, so we're going to go into looking at how to co-regulate emotions and responses to stress. We're going to look at how to solve some problems together. And then creating things to look forward to. I think that is also a piece that a lot of us are missing right now, is that those things we look forward to, such as warm weather and gatherings and concerts and going to the beach and sitting on patios, right? It's difficult to think about that not being part of our lives right now. So creating little things to look forward to, I think, will help us out. So in looking at this Building Blocks for Learning, which is a framework for the development of skills that kids need to be successful in school and beyond, and it's kind of built to represent like lower order to higher order skills. So if you're looking at the blocks moving up, you can see that resilience and agency are almost the top tier, and that those are directly related to our ability to persevere in challenging times. I know you've probably heard the word agency. It's a big piece of our primary years program at GEMS, and something that we're constantly trying to facilitate in our school environment. Whoop, excuse me, sorry. So as you can see, there are self-regulation there at the bottom. That's something we'll look a little bit more at. And then the resilience piece as well. So when thinking about co-regulating emotions and responses to stress, first we need to think about how we self-regulate. And that's like our ability to manage our thoughts and feelings and actions, right? And kids aren't necessarily born with that ability to manage the thoughts and feelings and actions. We have to teach it. We have to show them. We have to model. We have to demonstrate. For us to self-regulate, it helps us to maintain our calm and alert, and supports our capacity to respond rather than react in the face of many strong emotions and stressors. So if we're thinking about co-regulation, that's kind of developing through a child's interactions with the caregivers, such as the parents and the teachers, coaches, other mentors. Its development is dependent on predictable, responsive, and supportive environments. So here are 7 keys that I found when looking at this online. Is that it's important for us to keep calm and be real with kids, right? I am a horrible liar. My dad used to always tell me that. So I've gotten to the point where I realize honesty really is the best policy. And that's important, I think, more now than ever before, is for us to be real, but to explain it in a way that, that children can understand. Initiating a conversation about coronavirus, right? Because if we try to hide it from them, it only makes them more curious. Being honest about being worried, limiting our exposure to media. You know, it's really hard. I actually just had a conversation with someone today about the need to turn off my notifications on my phone, because I feel like I need to start limiting my exposure to it, because getting the same message every day can be very disheartening. Give them the facts, right? Kids want to know the reality of what's going on. Communicate often, at least once a day. Take time to sit and have a conversation with the kids. And then, as Meg's going to share a little bit more later, taking care of yourself so that you can care for others, right? That is a critical part. So solving problems together and celebrating successes, right? So in a remote learning environment, the development of problem-solving skills is critical, and it's easy to lose opportunities to recognize students for their learning triumphs or for their skill development. When we are celebrating their successes in online learning by highlighting the growth and achievements, many of the positive attributes that we see in the traditional setting of school can be kept alongside the benefits that come along with e-learning. So some of the strategies that you can use are to brainstorm some desired behaviors or outcomes that are observable or measurable, and then focus on celebrating what you want to see more of. Put these celebrations on calendars or schedules to ensure that you have follow through. And then treat the planned celebrations as like rituals to prepare you as you would for any other important commitment, right? So it's just really important for us to look at those little successes and to really celebrate them when we witness them in our students or children. Creating positive anticipation and hope. Like I said, right now, it's easy to focus on all of the things we won't be able to do this summer. But there are things that we can look forward to and positively anticipate and hope for that can model that resilience to the kids or for the kids. So modeling, anticipating things that might normally be considered routine. Creating a list of things to look forward to. right? With a mix of imminent things and further out activities. And one thing I found online that I really loved that a parent was doing is she created a jar for her kids to write down on a Post-it note different things that they're looking forward to doing when this is all over, and they're putting it in a jar. And when the coronavirus lockdown eases a little bit or lightens up, then they're going to start taking those Post-it notes out and focusing on those little activities that the kids were really looking forward to doing. And some of it was even like giving grandma a hug, you know, so the little things really do matter, as we know. Leave some room for spontaneity, right? It's so difficult. Of course, we want routines, but it's also nice to throw in a little fun and spontaneity every now and then. And then practice seeing potential everywhere, from places to people to businesses, and really model that for the kids, showing that although times may seem tough right now, that we can still look ahead and be positive. One resource that I used when I was in the classroom, and even every month in my office, I would print it out and have it up, is an action calendar. It is from an organization called actionforhappiness.org. And actually, these are going to be shared with you. And if you click on this, it will link you directly to the website where you can print it yourself. But every single day, it's just a little something that we can do to help us, you know, maintain some mindfulness and have a little meaning in our day. And they're very simple, but I feel like they could go a long way. And I had it by my door in the classroom, and the fifth graders every day would take a look at it and say, okay, today we need to take a minute to remember what really matters to us and why, you know, and that's for tomorrow. So that can be something you aspire to do. At that, I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to Peg Kiner. Let me just stop my screen sharing here.
Hi friends, it's great to see all of you. You may know me as the iPad lady at our school, but I'm actually a National Geographic explorer and a long distance cyclist. So I have a lot of experience in needing resilience to go pretty far. I've been in some crazy situations. So I'm going to share with you a little bit about some tools for resilience and things that you and your family can use during this time. Okay. So when we think about resilience, we're really thinking about not just a single thing that we'll use for a day, but resilience is a process. And I think of it in terms of these 4 boxes of physical resilience, social, mental, and emotional. And this is inspired by a website called SuperBetter, which sounds really silly, but SuperBetter is gamified resilience building. So one way to think about this time is to reframe your daily activities through quests. So instead of just completing, you're on a mission. What are you going to accomplish today? And one thing that this website uses is you can make your own quests, or there's ones that you can source. But imagine your child. Sometimes all you need in life is a little bit of reframing the situation in order to be more engaged. So inside the app, they have things like bad guys. Well, a bad guy is really maybe self-doubt or frustration. It's thinking about how are you going to overcome that? And that's what this is all about. It's a toolbox for helping you and your child overcome these situations. One book that I do want to recommend that's helped me through this time is called Atomic Habits. And you know, when we lose our daily habits, we start to lose aspects of our identity. So when we're rebuilding our resilience toolbox, we're rebuilding our identity. We're building our new daily habits. So as you go through these different sections, I want you to think about which one of these could you pull into your family life as part of your new daily resilience building habits. So one of these sections was social resilience, and this is maintaining connection. This is a lonely time for us. So, you know, how are you scheduling in this social time for yourself, but also for your students? So regular social time, some families use FaceTime or Zoom or Marco Polo, but it can also be things like chalking a message for your neighborhood. I started writing down and telling my neighbors about all the trees and plants in the area. It's these small ways that we can give back to each other. I also made a mission for myself to write letters each week. And my goal is to write at least one letter to someone I I know. Netflix party is a way to have kind of a social family time with other people. That's a great one. Even doing puzzles together. Oftentimes we're working separately in our daily life, but having time to play and work together is really important in what can be a stressful time. Making a friend coloring book. Okay, I have a friend who made a coloring book for the neighborhood. So each house is a coloring page and they color it in. We've had a lot of kids draw pictures of their friends or for their friends. And then, Tennille talked about thinking forward to the future, but we are living life today. So thinking about how can we celebrate today? Was there maybe a vacation that you missed? I know Mr. P always says, take an imagination vacation. If you miss Disney World, how can you make your house into Disney World? What can you include into your space to make that feel like a social environment? And I don't know about you, but week 2 of work at home for me was Spirit Week. Even my boyfriend was wearing green on Green Day. It's important to create these social moments where we may have feel a loss for one. So again, social resilience. The next one is to think about emotional resilience. And really, as I give you these tips, think about how you as an adult might use these too, because I am absolutely integrating all of this into my daily life as well. So structure is really important for emotional resilience. Again, that's where your daily habits change, right? And timers are so important. I know you and your kids, you could probably work all day. It's important to take breaks. Now, a lot of our kids we have timers in school. Sometimes we use physical, visual timers. There's this timer app that allows that. But even if you have a board game at home, you can use a sand timer. It's important to just take quick 10 minutes, maybe after they accomplish an assignment. In my house, I do a couple jumping jacks, run around the house a little bit, get some of that energy out before you can get back and sit down. That's what we do in school. We wouldn't have them work, 3 hours at a time. We work and then we have a physical break, a physical social break. Go get a drink of water, go talk to a friend. Mr. P also calls it the alone zone, that taking breaks is not only a time to be physically active, but also have time to yourself. Especially if you've been on a Zoom call, sometimes you need some alone zone from that Zoom call. Other comfort tools, this is recommended from our JK teachers. Stuffed animals, comfort animals, maybe students start to feel a loss. Knowing what your child needs to feel comfort and helping them understand when and what they can use during that time. Helping them label emotions. This is a very emotional time for all of us, and helping them say, I am feeling this way, and then giving them that control back saying, but I can do this. What do they know where they can go in your house where they feel safe and warm and comfy? And then something I do personally is a visual check of emotions. I'm sure you felt it, that in the first 6 weeks, it was, we were getting into a groove and things are starting to change. And maybe the things you used in the beginning are not working now. It's important to keep track of your emotional wellness along this journey, as that can give you tips on what you might need to tweak in your own family habits. You can do anything for 2 minutes. Again, I'm a long distance cyclist. I've been stuck in riding my bike across the forest. And this is what my coach always says to me when things get really hard. You can do anything for 2 minutes. If you have a child who's working on a long activity, break it into smaller chunks. Piecing out these items will help them slowly start to build and understand the joy of progress, that it's not about failing all in one moment, that we can do things in small chunks to accomplish large tasks. Oh, the last one is there's a little self-compassion survey. I think sometimes we as parents are overachievers and we're trying to be the best for everyone, but make sure that you are allowing time for yourself and being compassionate to yourself. My phrase is always be gentle with yourself. And that's a link for a self-compassion survey, just to get a little gut check on yourself if you're being kind or not. Physical resilience. Now we have some amazing PE teachers who are flooding your child's activities with awesome videos. We're gonna put all those on one page. But remember, you need to be taking physical breaks as well. Here's a few. We always use Go Noodle in school. That's a popular, especially indoor recess one that we use. Dances. They're quick, maybe 2 to 3 minutes tops. I enjoy the Swerk It app because it will tell me I can schedule what time I want the notification, and it will push it out to me to remind me it's time to get away from the computer and take a break. Your kids can design their own challenges. They can be the Mr. M and design a challenge for the family, a whole workout, and let the kids lead. Dance party. Okay, motivation songs. Now, at our school, we often do big assemblies where students are singing. And one of my favorites, that it was the first day of school and Mr. Roebuck made us all sing "I Can Go the Distance" from Hercules. And you know what? That is my motivation song right now. So do you have a family motivation playlist? You can use it to pump yourself up to this physical resilience. You know, but you can start the day with this stuff. That might help get the kids' energy flowing to get down to work for a little while. Last one is mental resilience. And this is the most challenging, right? Because it's the least one that we can see. But, and this will all be available on the site later to kind of explore and think about more. But remember, part of the mental resilience and the challenge right now, it's about control. And we're in a space where we're trying to give our kids as much control as they can over what we have. And one of the suggestions was to let the students select a few activities they want to do first, and they can park the other ones for later, kind of helping this with the executive functioning of selecting the order in which they're doing their items. Now, of course, you might need to, check. You're not allowed to do all PE first, but you got to compromise with your kids and give them at least some opportunity to choose. Another one would be to schedule that quiet time. Part of mental resilience is relaxing from that space. Another big one, go outside for even a few minutes. Now, not everyone can do this. Maybe 1, look out the window. 2, can you open a window? And then 3, can you possibly go outside? Even just a few minutes, I think, does the body good. The last one would be reframing negative thoughts here. Now, when things get really challenging, helping kids reframe the issue of what did I learn in this moment? What's hard? How can I move forward? Really, we're training them to think about how we can overcome big problems and tasks. Now, we are funneling a lot of activities to kids, but we want to foster their own curiosity. Maybe there's something that they're so interested in that they don't have an opportunity to share with their class. How could you foster that curiosity at home and drive that both mental resilience and motivation? We've talked about this tonight a lot, but acknowledging progress, this is a really hard time, and even a little encouragement about, you've made it this far today. And that could even be, putting it down on a list, but seeing it in real life about all the things they're making is super powerful. I'm all about gamification. Create the mission of the day. What are we accomplishing? What is our goal? And then field failure. I told you I'm a National Geographic explorer, and you know what, explorers, the one thing we can count on is that there's always going to be a field failure. Something's always going to go wrong. And right now we are all in this world living each day like we're on an expedition. We're living one day at a time, and it's important to just make sure you're meeting your needs of those 4 parts of your resilience. And now I pass it off to Meg to talk about self-care.
Okay, hi friends. Thank you all for being with us tonight. And I am wrapping it up with self-care because like you, I am a parent. I have a 3-year-old and an 8-month-old at home. And so I know, just like you, that this is very difficult to make time for self-care. But just like you're instructed on an airplane, to take your own oxygen mask and put it on yourself first before helping somebody else. It is so critical to have that same mentality when you are taking care of yourself in these times so that you can be the best parent that you can be to your child. Everybody tonight has mentioned strategies for working with your children, and you have also heard to please internalize some of these things and use them on yourself as well. So remember the importance of physical activity and exercise, and that probably means you're not going to be able to do an hour-long class like you used to at the gym, because I don't know about you, but there is no way that I can get an hour of time to exercise when I have my 2 kids at home. And by the time they go to bed at night, oftentimes I have to plug in and do some more work. So I have made it a priority to make sure I'm getting 20 to 30 minutes of exercise a day. For me, that's been manageable. And I don't let myself go to bed until that happens, because the one day that I did not do that, I had a harder time sleeping at night. And I also noticed I was significantly shorter with my children and my patients. So that is something that I have made a priority. I might not be able to get my full hour of exercise, but I can do 20 to 30 minutes. Maintaining healthy nutrition, I know can be challenging when you feel like you're juggling so many different things, but this is important to do not only for your kids, but for yourself as well. I know that I am definitely guilty of like grabbing the granola bar for lunch and leaving it at that, but I really try to have things that are convenient and healthy that not only my kids can eat, but that my partner and I can eat as well, so that we are nourishing our bodies in an appropriate way. Maintaining that contact with people who support you, that can be socially, that can be emotional supports, but maintaining those supports throughout this entire time, of course, is so important, because we know that you are missing those contacts just as much as your kids are. I know that Peg mentioned some resources for practicing some mindfulness. Danielle mentioned it as well. I personally cannot find the time to meditate for half an hour a day. I started the Oprah free 21-day challenge, which is a 20-minute a day meditation. And I think there have only been about 2 or 3 days where I've been able to complete the full 20 minutes, but I am prioritizing finding time for a solid 5 minutes of quiet mindfulness where I am doing deep breathing and clearing my mind. So I'm adjusting to make it work based on the constraints that I have. And think about what brings you joy, just like you want your kids to be looking forward to small moments. Think about the things that bring you joy as well, and try to integrate those things into your routines. And that might mean that you might have to have a conversation with your partner, if you are sharing your space with another adult at home, to try to figure out how can you balance all of your obligations so that each one of you has a little bit more time for some self-care. I do want to end by sharing with you our GEMS parent website to make sure that you all are aware of the resources that are there for you. And we have at the top of our website, that's linked in the newsletters that Cindy sends out each week. This website has an SEL resources tab. And there is a balance of resources on here for you. You'll notice that some of them are focused on reducing the stress for everyone. But then we do have some that are really more so geared towards you as the parent. So the importance of self-care. This is a great article. Take 2 minutes to read it. That can be a part of your self-care tonight, because it's so critical to care for yourself so that you can be the best parent right now for your child. 2 resources that I have found helpful have been these 2 podcasts. I personally have been trying to find time away from the screen after my work obligations are over. And so this Simple Families podcast is one that I've listened to long before coronavirus was a thing in our lives. But since all of this has begun, she is a licensed clinical social worker and has a PhD in child development, and she has geared her episodes more so towards parenting during this time. And then Brene Brown, some of you may have heard of her before, but she recently started this podcast, and her episodes, again, are focused on helping you understand yourself and your own emotions, because that is an important part of self-care, understanding what you need and when you might need to reach out to seek help and talk to others and get support. But her podcast has also been very helpful. I know that many parents have had concerns about how to talk about this with their children, and so we have some resources linked here to help you have some of those conversations. Over the weekend, Sesame Street had a really great town hall on CNN, and it provided the opportunity for my 3-year-old daughter and me to have talking points. We've talked about this with her before, of course, and we're working from home now. She's not going to her preschool day childcare type of situation. She sees people with masks. So we've had those conversations, but Sesame Street characters were talking with real doctors and different professionals, and they made this all so kid friendly and not intimidating. So they have a recording of that, but also many more resources that are going to be really helpful for you during this time. And then again, just, you know, further resources for you as well for helping you to be the best parent that you can be, so that you can hopefully feel like you are at somewhat of a peaceful place yourself, while also being able to maintain some patience with your kids. And I know Peg mentioned grace, but I wanted to just end by sharing a quote with you that I had found recently. And of course, my quote closed, but it is about having grace. And I think that we just need to keep in mind that if we make mistakes and we're short-tempered with our kids, we take deep breaths and then we try again next time. So live with grace today for others, for your family, and for yourself. Grace to stumble, to forgive, to try again, to not have the answers, to be afraid, to try hard, to believe. Grace to be human, and grace to be real. So thank you so much, and we are happy to take questions and answers right now.
Some of you might have typed in some questions, so if you have any questions that Jessica and Rachel, do we have any questions from before that we need to address as you've been monitoring? No? Okay, so I just, before we go into starting, I'll give you a chance to type a few questions. And before we jump into that, I do want to thank Meg and Peg and Scott and Tennille. I also wanted to talk a minute about the sources of stress. I mean, we talked about the sources of stress that are obvious to the whole world right now, but one of the primary sources of stress is the academic requirements that your kids are facing every single day and that you're facing in trying to get them to do those assignments. And while we very much value academic rigor, we are very much committed to maintaining rigor, but rigor isn't defined by volume. And you'll read this in my memo tomorrow that will come out to you. But that is really a very important piece for us right now, is recognizing that it's not the quantity of work that gets done, it's the quality. And it's the process of learning. It's getting kids to think critically and engage in problem solving and apply what they've learned. And so those are all really important pieces to learning. And I know many of you are concerned about, is my child going to be behind? Is my child going to be retained? How can I get them up to speed? And I'm just going to say the whole world is doing this right now, everybody. So your child might be a little bit behind, but so will everyone else. And we will catch your kids up. We will get them back into school and we will work magic with them, and they will jump in and be so engaged and so excited because they've missed their friends and their teachers so desperately. So we know the transition back in will also be challenging, but in a good way. And we really look forward to seeing them. I hope you're all staying healthy. I hope your kids are staying healthy. We miss you terribly. And I'm going to check the chat to see if there are any questions. So one question about the operational update on GEMS and plans for the fall. So I did start off that way, and perhaps the person who wrote the question came in a little bit late, but we will be monitoring the health and safety recommendations in the state and in the city. We are regularly, Adriana and Tom and Tracy and I are on webinars all the time, learning about how other people are adjusting and making contingency plans for re-entry, or already ordering, PPE supplies and that sort of thing. In terms of the question on tuition adjustments, I believe that Tom has been in communication with Dubai about what the message is going to be. I don't think that's been formalized yet, but I'm sure he would be happy to answer that question in an email to him. Any other questions?
City, just one came in.
Okay. I'm trying to read it as I talk to you. So there was a thank you. That was thank you. Thank you. Thank you for thanking us. Not a question. I'm not seeing a question. Do you have can you?
Yeah, I can
Did the
read
question
it.
come to you, or did it go to everybody?
It's to everybody, but I can read it.
Oh, go ahead. I'm not seeing it. Sorry.
Okay. So a parent says, I really appreciate the content offered in. You got it now? Okay.
Yes. No, it's okay. My 3-year-old's been getting frustrated. Seeks perfection. Yes. Some of these tools can help. I think when kids are seeking perfection, one of the best things you can do is model making mistakes. Make mistakes and make big deals of them. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I did that, right? So that's kind of a standard, and make it a part of your daily practice. And eventually your child will tolerate imperfection, but also reminding them, as Mr. P said earlier, of the small steps that they can take, the little increments that they can accomplish. One of the things I have talked to a lot of parents about is creating a schedule where there are sort of designated work times during the day and a menu of choices this is for younger kids. And I think it's really helpful if you have, say, 3 or 4 choices during the day, and knowing that the kids have to do that you have a conversation with your child that we will do all 4 of these things today. When you do them is your choice. We have an opportunity for you to, to sit with a book and look through a book right now, or to do some math activity around the house. But one of them should always be playtime. And don't forget that, because that's part of kids' work, and they do it very organically in school when their friends are around. But if they don't have a sibling and they're at home all day, they're missing that. So all those things I think can help in terms of planning for prepping for kids to tolerate imperfection. Anyone else want to jump in there?
There was one more question that came in, Cindy.
Okay.
If you wanted to check that, just asked about summer camp.
Okay, I can totally to answer that. But does anyone want to jump back in on the perfection question? Because I know we all have thoughts on that. I'm sure we talk about it.
Well, yeah, I think you echoed kind of what I said earlier, Cindy. I think exactly. I do that all the time. I will completely purposefully make a mistake in front of a kid, and then ask the child, well, what should I do? Right? Try to getting them to, instead of focus on the mistake, to help help me become a problem solver. All right, that's okay. I made a mistake, but what should I do? I think a very good avenue into getting buy-in from kids is enlisting them as help for something you're doing. Kids, they drool at the opportunity to help an adult with something, to think, I am teaching you. One thing I always say, like if a kid steps into my office for the first time, I always say, hey, this is a space where me and you are going to be learning from each other. I try to, there's some moments where, I have to be an adult and they have to be a kid, but there's some moments where we get to be on this equal playing field. We get to be kind of the same. We're both learning how to cope with anger. We're both learning how to deal with sadness or build resilience. And one thing I've talked a lot with our colleagues about is how this is such a unique opportunity as a parent or an educator to be going through something with your child as it happens, right? A lot of times, maybe as we get older, I can remember maybe my mom would tell you that she heard a lot about stuff that she needed to parent me on after it happened. Mom, last night or Mom, 2 weeks ago, I didn't tell you, and we're kind of doing a reflection-based learning in that way. But right now, we are going through something with our kids. We're going through it. We're going through schedules being up in the air. We're going through learning new skills on the fly. We're going through managing our emotions and building resilience, and to talk to a kid about that, to talk to a kid about, hey, I'm not perfect either. Here's my to-do list from today. I didn't get 3 things done, and that's okay. I'm still going to remember them when I wake up. I'll attack them when I have time, and that's okay. That I didn't do everything I wanted to do, and this is something I'm dealing with. And here's a way that you could help me, and here's a way I could help you, and we will partner in this, and we'll build resilience together. Kids love to just be part of the team, to be part of the team adult. They love it, and I think there's so many opportunities right now for you to just say, I'm on this. I'm in this with you right now, hand in hand, buddy, and let's work on this together. So that'd be my little additional piece.
Can I just jump in with one more suggestion? Just to be totally transparent, that I think we've all agreed that e-learning is much more successful for older children who are more independent and who have more ability to sustain attention over a longer period of time. So a bunch of our GEMS team has put together a lot of screen-free resources that are going to target the same academic skills that your kids are working on, just in different ways. So if your 3-year-old is not interested in Zoom or the classroom activities, please reach out to us, and we are happy to give you some other ways to keep your child, you know, we want to keep their mind engaged in creative problem solving, and in other academic tasks, we can give you different ways to do that. So you're still feeling like you and your child are having productive days. But again, you know, the iPad and all of our classroom activities, our teachers are pushing out amazing resources, but it's not going to be the best fit for every kid. So we're here to help you with that. Like I said, we have tons of resources, so please reach out to us and we can provide you with some alternatives to the screen too.
So the question regarding summer school, summer camp rather, we are obviously monitoring all the time to see what we can do. Right now, we don't have an actual answer. I would say it's probably looking like the school won't quite be ready to open for summer camp, but we will continue to keep you posted on that. Unfortunately, it's not a given right now. And the question regarding a school-wide assembly for the kids, we have talked about that. Zoom only allows for 100 people at a time, and we have many more than that. So we are trying to figure out whether we maybe do a grade by grade assembly or something like that for the end of the year. But we have people working on that. As you've probably seen, Jessica Lynn sent out communication regarding the talent show for grades 2 through 5. We're getting some awesome submissions. They're really fun to watch. They've made me smile several days in a row now. And we are also looking at trying to pull together some form of a spring concert. I know that sounds a little crazy, but we're working on some creative ideas around that, teaching a grade level a song and having them and piecing together a video of them singing and sharing that out. So we are working on some end of year rites of passage celebrations, things that we will miss. And other parents have also shared concern that, you know, it's difficult to end the year without saying goodbye or having closure. And we agreed that in the fall when we are back, we could try to do something where kids maybe have a picnic where kids can actually have some closure with their last year's teacher. So they get an opportunity to be with their friends from that class and also their teacher. So we're looking into all those different kinds of activities. So it is good to see everyone's faces, and I hope everyone's staying well and that you're staying safe and taking care of yourselves. Please feel free to reach out to any of us. Again, these resources will be sent out to you tomorrow in an email. But also they will be linked to the parent website that Meg shared a screenshot of, or her screen of. So that updates every single week, and you'll see this there, okay? So thank you very, very much for coming tonight, and we'll see you soon, hopefully.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everyone.